Hi everyone. Today I just want to talk a little bit about, I just want to continue off from the previous tutorial, which was about cloth and fabric. Again, a very difficult subject to deal with. This is probably one of the few things that I would actually call an advanced basic. So don't worry about these 4 points. These are just things that I left for myself to understand, for myself to refer back to. I'm going to be going over these 4 things, but the first is the rope ladder breakdown. If you look at any, say, tube of cloth, right? You can take this tube and it can be broken down into, multiple strips, right? I can cut it up into different strips, and each one of these strips can be turned into something similar to a ladder, but made out of string, rope ladder. So that's why I call this a rope ladder breakdown, because I can go through and I can find more of these rope ladders. All right. Now, it's easy. It might be kind of difficult to simulate dynamics on a whole sleeve, but on a rope ladder, it's much easier. So, if we look at, say, a rope ladder and we apply compression to it, so I'm going to take one of these rope ladders aside. Let me just isolate this one. Okay. So if I isolate a rope ladder, put it in the middle and subdivide it. And this time I'm going to apply pressure evenly on both sides. Then you're going to wind up with something kind of like this. Alright, so there's the middle, and then I subdivide once more. Okay, this is what I would call an even-ended compression, meaning that the compression is equal on all sides. It's an equilibrium, and that is going to cause the left side and the right side of the ladder to compress equally, and you just get a standard ripple. Any kind of ripple that you get in the fabric is always caused by compression. Even when you apply tension, if you apply tension on another piece of the fabric, what will happen is other parts of the fabric which you do not apply tension to, those parts are left behind. Those parts will be dragged along, and somehow or another in another axis of the fabric there will be uneven compression. And I'm going to show this. So let me just shove everything aside again. I don't think we need to see that little cylinder anymore. Let's say we apply, I'm going to apply pressure, I'm going to apply tension to one of these corners. Let's say I apply tension to this corner. This is what you wind up with. Oh, hang on, this is our corner point, then it's going to pull along like so. Now this point here I'm going to deal with that point last, surprisingly. But this is what you're going to get. Something like this. Okay. I'm going to put in additional spokes, rungs to the ladder, just so you can understand what's going on here. And actually, hold on. Not easy to do this. There we are. Okay. Something like this is going to happen. Now, that's because when I pulled on this point here, it wound up pulling this along for the ride, pulling that and pulling that. Everything else got pulled along. All the motion propagated through this ladder. Now, what happened was all of the rest of the ladder was kind of left behind, right? It's like if you yank on a rope ladder, inertia is just going to keep the rest of the cloth in one place. But these points don't have any reason to move unless I apply tension, an equal force to all these different points. But because I'm only applying tension to one point, the net result is that it's as if all of these other points are being pushed in the opposite direction. They aren't really; they're just being left behind. But as you pull on this, all of the other points are going to want to collapse to the center along the axis of the pull. And as a result of that, you get compression, right? You're going to get uneven compression, and that's why you're going to get a ripple that forms like that. And the same thing can be said if I were to take the ladder. If I take this ladder and I purposefully, grab two ends and shove them inwards towards each other, the effect is still going to be the same. You're going to get some buckling that occurs off plane. And by off plane, I mean, let me just stick another frame in there. Right? It's like if we have this rope ladder sitting on a table, right? There's the plane. This is the plane that it sits on, right? So cloth can, anytime there's a wrinkle, anytime there's a fold, it's going to buckle off plane, right? Like that. And you can have wrinkle biases as well. Now, what else did I want to talk about? Working in all axes, right. Let's take this rope ladder and let's apply it to something like, say, a pant leg. So before I go in and draw a pant leg, I need to deal with the geometry underneath the pant leg. That is the person who's wearing the pants. So if I have the hip joint down here, and I'll just treat that as the far hip joint, and there's a knee joint right here. Just keep everything really simple and cylindrical. Okay. And there would be the other, well, the ankle joint would be down there. So if we have a simple pair of leg segments here, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply the rope ladder again. Except, let's see, hang on, let me just think for a second here. Now with the rope ladder, which was doing this business, right, let's just bring that back. Right. Okay. I think, is it going to go like that? This is, we have an axis of bend right here, right? This is where the knee joint is, and it's bending through this axis. So if we take an arc like this, or hang on, wait a second. Let's take that rope ladder. So we have ourselves a rope ladder that's going along the side of the leg. This is the inside right here. This is the inside curve. So it's going to bump. I'm going to make it curve along this axis, but I'm going to bump it away and towards the leg like that. There. And then this is the center of the bend right here, so I'm going to pull those. Well, also you've got the knee joint. So if you have the knee joint, this is where all the fabric is pulling tight, mind you. So the wrinkles are going to pull away from the knee joint. This is the point of tension. So that means they're going to radiate outwards from the point of tension. So hold on, let me think about this for a second. See, this is very tricky. It is something that you really have to think about, and you can't just sort of dive into it blindly. I think it probably works better this way, even. So if I go across, in, out, in, there we go. That looks much better. Okay. Now it's properly radiating away from the knee joint. And then it can go and it can pull around behind the leg. And even now up here it almost seems like there's, I almost feel like there should be a, you can put down cross sections anywhere on the leg, wherever you feel that they are necessary. And then these ripples, they have to go around. They have to go around the leg. And you'll find that up towards the top, this is where the ripples tend to get closer together and a lot more deep up there. But as you get further and further away, the more gradual these ripples become. There we are. So let's see, where's that ladder in all this? So even the ladder's spokes, the two struts on the side of the ladder, those can become bent. But the real key to being able to deal with this kind of wrinkle is being able to make lines that pass over the surface. That's why I call this an advanced basic, because if you don't have that ability to do things like, pass lines over a surface, or to be able to turn an arc, right? If you can't turn an arc or you can't turn an ellipse, same old coconut, right? That's why this is an advanced basic, because if you can't do this, you're going to have a really tough time of it, or you might simply not be able to do it at all. You'll find yourself failing a lot. So that's that's one of the hard things about this. I wanted to say, to work in all axes. One of the problems that people have when they try to draw clothing is when they draw the pant leg, then their problem is that they just kind of draw lines out like this. And they're only going out in one axis, or they're really just going out from one point in one direction. They're only going out this way. They're only working in one axis or in one direction. They're just radiating outwards. What you need to do is you need to be able to not just wrap in different directions, but also to be able to go over the fabric in different axes, right? You need to be able to go crosswise as well as lengthwise. You need to work in all axes. That's one of the most important things about working with cloth, because cloth will bend in 2 dimensions, 3 dimensions. It will bend in all directions depending on where the source of the tension is. What else did I want to say? Yeah, you have to work to the ends as well. What I mean by working to the end is, if you have your form like so, one of the problems that a person, that an amateur will often encounter, is that they're just going to go and they're going to just draw lines that go out here, and then they're going to try and figure out where the next one is, and they're going to eke these, they're just kind of squeaking the lines out slowly. Or it's kind of hard to explain, but it's just they're only looking at where the wrinkle is in this particular, in one small area. In my case, whenever I draw a line, whenever I draw a wrinkle, I have to think, where is the clothing attached to? Where is the wrinkle, starting from, and where is it ending up? So I have to work to the ends, and I have to work in all directions. So I work crosswise, and I work to the ends. And I have to know, where is my, where am I ending up? Where are the points of tension? And where are the points here where are the points of compression? Points of compression would be anywhere on the insides of these joints. So you have to be able to work from the beginning of where the tension is and where the compression is. You have to work to the ends. Find the area of tension, the area of compression, but out here, this may be yet another, the end of the pant leg. That's another kind of a critical point. And again, I'll work in all directions. Sometimes I might not know exactly how many lines to make, so I'll work crosswise the other way if that helps. And then again, I might even have to change direction on this. And again, I'll work crosswise. and I'm going to put in all these cross sections until I figure out fabric. I've only been working with fabric for a few days, so this is kind of a rare occurrence, but I'm showing you, a technique that I have not fully worked out, and that it is something that's still in progress. It is far from perfect, but I'm telling this to you right now so you guys have an idea of how I think, and that if you, I know that some of the things that I'm doing right now are probably wrong, but it's up to you to find what's right. It's every artist's responsibility to find out what is the right way to do things, not to just rely on tutorials. Okay, so I mean it's looking pretty close, but I know it's not perfect because it doesn't look quite right in some areas. Yeah, and I said this is an advanced basic. It's an advanced basic because you have to handle things like, ellipses that go in different directions, that kind of thing. Being able to, turn. Look, see, you can see how on this leg, right? I'm looking at this left side of the leg, then I'm looking kind of diagonally, right? And then there's a part that's turning towards me, right? And then there's another part that turns away the other way. Now it turns the other side, right? And it can still go all the way around. In 360 degrees, you have to be able to handle. You have to be able to handle these surface curves that are passing over everything. So, work in all axes, work in all directions. Now, right, there's one last thing which is not in the notes that I didn't mention, and that is, suppose, let's take an arm this time. Okay, I'm going to do that rope ladder thing again. And I'm going to make it bump out quite large and bump in. Maybe I'll just bump it out a second time and find out where is that elbow. Okay, the same thing is happening on the other side. Okay, so there. Now I'm going to join these two, just connecting. Now what I have here are wrinkles that are too large in circumference. So whenever fabric is too large, whenever the cross section of a wrinkle becomes too large in circumference, then secondary buckling occurs. See, now I carved a dip into this large bump. There's a collapse, and it comes out. I'm going to put another secondary buckling. So that's what you do, is that sometimes you have to break these up and then find ways to get another one. There's another secondary buckling. You'll stagger them and you'll find that they're going to mesh into one another like this, something like that. They'll stagger. So I have that. Let's okay, now I have to propagate outwards. I have to find a way to get, like, it doesn't just wind up with 3 curves and then it ends. And these wrinkles are a little bit too strong, so let me, I just want to redraw them. Erasing is not destruction of work. It's making room for something better. It's making room for things that are right. The drawing goes, the decisions are still in your head. That's the hardest part for every artist, is really making these decisions. So whenever you notice that there is something wrong, erase it. And if you're afraid to erase it, there's a good chance that maybe your basics are just too weak. Because for a person whose basics are weak, every line that turns out okay to them, every line that looks right is precious, because most of the time they're making lines that are wrong. So it's a thing that most people don't want to admit to themselves. Yeah, you too, Evan. It's okay, there's no one, I don't actually have any students named Evan, I just wanted to say that. I just imagine that someone named Evan is actually going to go, oh! And then, yeah, so now what I'm doing is I'm just shading according to how the wrinkles are bent. It's really simple. Okay, and turn the drawing back on. Right, so now all of these wrinkles are the same size. That's kind of a problem. I want to make it so that maybe the problem is that I didn't work in all the axes, so sometimes what I have to do is make a much more gradual one. So this is why you can't just be working crosswise only. I mean, why can't we be working lengthwise, radially outwards from the curve? Sometimes you have to work crosswise to reshape, make it right. So, that's fabric. It's a very, very, very tricky thing, but if you can find out how to get, if you can figure out how the fabric behaves when it's trapped in one joint, if you can find out how it behaves, when you compress it along the axis of a cylinder, then it becomes something that you can use over and over again every time you see that. And there aren't that many, there are only so many situations. I mean, like, you'll just see that same situation over and over again. So it's worth the time and effort to figure something like this out. That's why I call it an advanced basic, because not only does it rely on another basic, but in itself it is a basic skill that can be used to, a fundamental skill that can be used to over and over again in many of your creations. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say about fabric, well, for now, until I find a better way to do this kind of stuff. But anyway, that's it.